All right, so let's go on to persona number three, the sociable participants. And this is the kind of persona where we might get people who engage in side conversations while you're speaking. They engage in side conversations during small group discussions. Um, I'm just gonna send a quick message, then I'll put my phone away. Seriously, just one more message. So these are the folks that like to engage with other people as well as you and as the facilitator. And so when we talk about this kind of participant, I'd love to hear any thoughts that you have here in terms of how this can impact the training environment. I know that for me as a facilitator, it can be distracting. As a learner, it can be distracting. It can be annoying. I love what Tracy had to say here in terms of setting expectations and boundaries early on, and I think it's a good rule of thumb for all of these. Absolutely. This can it's rude, right? So some people kind of see this as it is just rude. Having working agreements to start is a really good strategy. In terms of what could drive this behavior, oh, I'm sorry. Some of the other things that this could do to impact the learning environment, it is distracting. It also can be contagious, right? Any of these behaviors can become contagious if we don't address it. And so this can give permission to others to engage in this kind of behavior. Or, it leads to multitasking. I can multitask. I can listen to what you're saying and also send an email. And the truth is that you can't. The brain can't handle two attention requiring activities at the same time. I can either focus on this email that I'm sending to my boss, or I can focus on this new topic that I'm learning. I can't do both. And so when people try to use that excuse as multitasking, it actually physiologically does not work. So some things that could drive this behavior. And I love some of these strategies here. We'll talk about this in just a second, but some things that could drive this behavior is that the participants are friends. Maybe they have lots of non-training thoughts on their mind. Maybe they feel like they know the answers, but they're not confident enough to share in the large group. So sometimes the side conversations that are happening are on topic, but it's just somebody who doesn't necessarily have enough confidence to speak up in the large group, so they kind of whisper it to their neighbors or whatever. Or maybe sometimes it's somebody who has a question about the topic, but they're not willing to share it in the large group because they don't want to ask a dumb question. So sometimes that's what's happening too. So sometimes those side conversations can be social. Sometimes they're on topic, and we just need to be aware of what's happening here. We always have we have some really good thoughts here already in the chat in terms of how we might engage this kind of persona, and I just kind of want to give a rule of thumb when trying to do this. And I think that that some other folks have mentioned this also in the chat, but the overall goal here is to make sure that we can connect with the participants without creating any sort of hostile student-teacher dynamic, right? We've all been there in grade school where we've been caught talking to the person who's sitting next to us. We don't want that feeling with a bunch of adults in a room. So if we can, let's try to avoid again, the us versus them. I'm the authority figure. I love what people have put in here already in terms of using the group agreements to start. I know that I'm really guilty that a lot of times when especially a shorter session, an hour session, 2 hour session, I don't usually do group agreements, and so I'll skip that step and then I will regret it instantly when people are chatting because this is something that can come up when you're establishing group agreements. I see that somebody mentioned this next comment as well. This idea of proximity control. So if some people are talking, sometimes it's effective just to continue your message while you meander over to where this group might be talking, right? And that almost always will stop them from talking, at least in the moment, because they notice that you've noticed what's happening. Sometimes it's helpful just to stop mid-sentence, right? So if and let the conversations happening be the loudest conversations happening in the room, and when people find that out, that they can self apologize or they have some self awareness and apologize for it as well. knowing that they're busted. And then there's a couple other thoughts here. Directly address it during maybe a small group conversation. So while you have people doing small group conversations all over the room, address it with the participants that seem to be having the side conversations. Again, not necessarily in the large room, because we. If we can avoid making it an us versus them type of dynamic, that's more ideal. Or listening to the table group conversations and maybe monitor. Maybe those conversations are on topic, so monitor for questions that aren't being asked in the large group. And then just a reminder, devices can be used during breaks, during lunch. If I recognize that life doesn't stop when we're in a training session. So if you do have an email that you have to send or a phone call that you have to make, feel free to step out of the room and do that, and then come on back so you can be present.